Throughout the Jasper fire, we encountered numerous examples of Parks Canada fire management actively obstructing our activities and not providing us with relevant information on the fire.
What was done was insignificant and poorly thought out. It did nothing to protect the town from the Jasper fire complex.
We're doing nothing to protect you against forest fires.
Well, we are learning some truly insane things about the federal government's response to the Jasper wildfire this past summer. For one, we now know that private fire crews were ordered to stand down and not assist in the fighting of the Jasper wildfire by different federal agencies while the wildfire was ripping through Jasper National Park. This latest revelation, layered on top of what we already know to be truly insane levels of incompetence when it comes to fire prevention by Parks Canada, is beginning to paint a very dark picture as to what exactly happened in Jasper over the summer. It's beginning to look as though the wildfire was entirely preventable. The Trudeau government has blamed every wildfire in this country over the past few years exclusively on climate change, refusing to acknowledge or take any responsibility for their inaction. Now, we don't want to ascribe intentional malice to anyone at Parks Canada for the Jasper wildfire. But with the information that we are starting to learn now from committee meetings, can you really blame Canadians for thinking that way? Now, before we get into the show, be sure to drop a like on this video. Help us out by subscribing to the True North YouTube channel. And the comment question for the episode is this: who should be held responsible for the negligence in battling the Jasper wildfire? Let me know your answer in the comments below, and let's get into it. Well, thanks to an ongoing parliamentary committee looking into the handling of the Jasper wildfire last summer, we now know that while Jasper was burning, while a third of Jasper had been burned and close to $1 billion of damages had occurred from the devastating wildfire, Parks Canada turned away the services of a private firefighting group. Now, this is not just a ragtag group of men pretending to be firefighters without proper authorization. This group, Arctic Fire Services Limited, had been contracted out by the Alberta government to protect the town of Jasper. So while the fire was taking place, Parks Canada turned them around. Take a listen to this shocking committee testimony.
Throughout the Jasper fire, we encountered numerous examples of Parks Canada fire management actively obstructing our activities and not providing us with relevant information on the fire. We were provided rules of engagement which we had to accept or be escorted out by the wardens. They reiterated twice by Parks Canada Operations Section Chief, second in charge to the incident commander, that we are not legally allowed to be there.
In a letter sent by Arctic Fire Safety Services to parliamentarians, it states clearly that throughout the Jasper fire, we, Arctic Fire Safety Services, encountered numerous examples of Parks Canada fire management actively obstructing our activities and not providing us with relevant information on the fire. It goes on to state that these firefighters were informed that they were non-essential, and when the fire risk rose again during August the 2nd to the 4th, with increasing fire behavior anticipated, they were lawfully ordered by Parks Canada to leave the park. This organization was not allowed to be part of the Incident Management Organization. However, Wildfire Defense Systems from Montana, so a foreign wildfire organization, was allowed to be part of the Incident Management Organization. So 50 firefighters and 20 fire trucks were turned away by Parks Canada from battling this wildfire. We now know from other testimony, this time from Ken Hodges, a forestry expert, that Parks Canada did nothing to address the situation building up on the ground with the invasive pine beetle that created fuel for the Jasper wildfire.
Nothing was done to address the landscape or of the beetle-killed timber to prevent the mega fire of July 22nd, 2024. What was done was insignificant and poorly thought out. It did nothing to protect the town from the Jasper fire complex.
So what are Parks Canada even doing at this point? What are they doing to prevent another major devastating wildfire that could ruin another piece of Canada's natural landscape? Jasper National Park is one of the most naturally beautiful places on Earth, and a third of it has now been burned to the ground and ruined due to what is clearly negligence and incompetence. No one at this point is seriously blaming the Jasper wildfire on climate change, except, of course, Steven Guilbeault, Justin Trudeau's Minister of the Environment.
We're doing nothing to protect you against forest fires.
Forestry experts are now all saying the same thing, that Parks Canada did not do enough to prevent this wildfire from happening. Furthermore, I spoke to Peter Schultz, a former Jasper National Park senior planner who worked at the park in 2008, and he claimed that as far back as even then, Parks Canada was not doing anything to clear the dead wood, to clear the fuel in the forest. They basically allowed the perfect situation. They allowed a tinderbox to build up inside Jasper National Park. And of course, the park caught on fire.
There's confidence in stopping the small fires, but I know that the fire team was telling upper management repeatedly, at least back in 2008 and since forward, there's a certain point we can't fight it anymore. There's too much fuel. It'll catch too fast. We need to clear out. We need to do prescribed burns during wet weather. We need to get machines in there. We need to log. We need to do things to remove the amount of fuel. We're very good at this, but there's a certain limit. And we have reached that limit. And that limit was reached 17 years ago.
So Parks Canada allowed bureaucratic red tape to prevent fire crews from putting out this fire earlier. They also, through multiple testimony, as well as an interview with a former employee of Parks Canada at Jasper National Park, did nothing for over 10 years to prevent the buildup of fuel and dead wood in Jasper National Park to stop a forest fire from happening. But of course, it's a whole lot easier to blame this devastating wildfire simply on climate change. To say that there's nothing anyone could do to prevent this from happening because climate change is simply unstoppable, without, of course, the following measures that need to be implemented, such as a carbon tax, such as banning the sale of gas vehicles, such as shutting down Canada's natural resources industry. Isn't it convenient that all of the solutions to solving climate change advance the federal government's liberal agenda? And isn't it convenient as well that all of these wildfires are being blamed exclusively on climate change, despite the overwhelming evidence that the Jasper wildfire had nothing to do with climate change? We're looking at a situation in which Canadians are starting to ask whether or not criminal negligence took place in this instance, whether or not a crime might have actually been committed here. And it's not like Steven Guilbeault isn't used to committing crimes to advance his political agenda. Actually, it's something he's pretty good at doing.
Greenpeace is climbing the world's tallest building today to tell the world not to be fooled by the Liberal government. As the talk on climate change starts, we want to tell the world that the Bush and Canadian administration are out to kill the Kyoto Protocol.
And you know what is horribly ironic? The carbon emissions from Canada's 2023 wildfire season, just the wildfires alone, nothing else. The wildfires produced more carbon emissions than all but 3 nations in 2023. The Canadian wildfires produced more carbon dioxide than every other country in the world, except for the United States, China, and India. So good luck trying to lower Canada's carbon emissions with your outrageous political policies like carbon taxes and with the constant political attacks on Canada's natural gas and oil industries, when you are doing nothing at all to prevent the spread of wildfires in our country, which produce more carbon dioxide than anything else in this country combined, which produce more carbon dioxide than all but 3 countries in the entire world. You don't get to blame wildfires on climate change when this level of negligence is taking place inside Canada's national parks. You can't just use climate change to absolve negligence from federal government agencies like Parks Canada and hope that everybody just moves along with their lives and forgets about it. This is disgraceful. Canadians should be outraged over this, and someone needs to be held accountable. And I think it'll likely be Steven Guilbeault. All right, everyone, that's going to do it for us today on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Harrison Faulkner, and this is Ratio.